Hello, my name is Oiza. Welcome to Cable Plus Property, your number one online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed properties. This is where you get easy access to every information related to building construction, documentation, registration, and particularly obtaining planning permits. In this episode, I'll be engaging the immediate past chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, NITP Lagos State Chapter, a professional par excellence, no other than town planner Bisi Adedire. Like I always say, come with me. Born over 6 decades ago in Okemesi, Ekiti State, town planner Adedire, who possesses a master's degree in housing management from the University of Ibadan, is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Corporate Marketing and Management of Nigeria, and fellow of the Institute of Chartered Administrators and Researchers of Nigeria. He's a consultant par excellence with over 20 years of experience who has successfully carried out diverse consultancy services for individuals, corporate bodies and institutions, as well as government agencies. Town planner Adedire has selflessly given himself to the service of the NITP, that's the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, and the Association of Town Planning Consultants of Nigeria, ATOPCON, both at the state and national level as the pioneer chairman of Association of Town Planning Consultants of Nigeria, Lagos State Branch, and the Secretary General of ATOPCON National. He is the principal partner of Bisi Adedire and Partners. Without doubt, the professionalism and dedication of town planner Adedire has earned him a lot of accolades within the institute and outside as well. His zeal and panache has made him one of the outstanding town planners in the country, having attended various seminars and workshops both locally and internationally, such as the Conference of African Planners in South Africa, the World Urban Forum in Brazil, the World City Summit in China, the World Urban Forum in Singapore, as well as relaying his opinions on several town planning issues in over 40 newspapers and journals. If you're watching this video, then join me as I engage again town planner Bisi Adedire. Hello sir, good morning. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Good day. You're welcome.
Thank you sir. Okay, so let's get started. So you've been doing business with the government as a direct applicant or as a representative of clients, as a consultant. Now, during those periods, there have been several government policies initiated to, ease the doing business. That's to integrate the ease of doing business for the public, which I encounter, and with practical experiences, would like you to assess those policies in the following areas. So I'll name the areas one after the other to give you time to, do a thorough assessment. The first one is in the area of title registration and perfection at the Land Bureau.
Successive government has been trying to emerge or evolve with various policies. Of recent, during the reign of General Muhammadu Buhari, at the Vice President office, they initiated the ease of doing business, in which states were being rated. Honestly speaking, since the beginning of this policy, things have already changed in Lagos State. They came up with series of policies that will assist the proponent or a developer at getting things done easily. One of such policies is that, unlike before, if you don't have title to your land in terms of COFO, deed of assignment, governor's consent, etc., you might not be able to obtain planning permit. But to make it easier for the people, they relaxed that policy, and they came up with granting development permit for those whoever that has a purchase receipt duly stamped, pending the time you get yours COFO, certificate of occupation, or certificate of occupancy, deed of assignment, and so on and so forth. But what will happen is this: provisional approval will be granted for you so as to be able to at least continue with your development. Pending the time you'll be able to access and get the title document ready. Aside from that, it has been a lingering issue when it comes to submission of document for planning permit. They demand for certified true copy of your title, and by the time you submit that, maybe in another 2 months, they will demand for another one. That one has taken time and you need to go, and it makes the process will be too cumbersome. So, but during this period, they relax the issuance of certified true copy. Again, to make sure that things were done easily in the state, they created more district offices. Unlike before, whereby a district office could be in charge of more than 10 communities. But what we have today, they've increased the numbers of district offices that will take care of planning permit in local government areas. So I think they increased from 20 to almost 41 now, which is enormous. And we give kudos to the state government in that regard. As part of ease of doing business, government, in a way, make sure that the time duration for obtaining planning permit has been streamlined so as not to waste much time. It is possible for you now to get your approval after being screened. You can get it within 2 weeks, unlike before, that it can take 1 year, 2 years, or in eternity. So, and the system they put in place that make it faster is that while bringing in your application, before submission, it must have been properly screened. The architect must have vet your application. The engineer must have look at through your structural details. If it is a project that will accompany electrical, mechanical, all those must have been sorted out even before the assessment was issued. By the time you get your assessment, you are sure of getting your approval at a reasonable time frame.
So I see that you already assessed these policies in line of procuring planning permits. But I'd like us to go back to the first question, which is registering your title and perfection at the Lands Bureau. How has these policies for the ease of doing business affected your dealings with officers at the Land Bureau?
At Land Bureau, government tried as much as possible, just like what I said in obtaining planning permit. For you to obtain title document at Land Bureau now, government has tried as much as possible to digitize the process. It is possible for you to get your document submitted without even seeing the officers. By the time all those things are ready, they process it through computer. And more so, they have linkage with Surveyor General's office. Because in the past, if you bring in your survey plan and you apply for CO4, it may take 6, even if not 1 year, before planning information could be issued. But this time around, they've synergized among the tiers government agencies so as to make sure that you get your land information certificate on time, because those are the things that usually cause delay. Then they book for site inspection on time, rather than when the O file will be compiled. Several applications will be compiled together before they call you for site inspection. But all those encumbrances have been removed, and it makes it faster. And more so because all these title documents are of various types. Certificate of occupancy, the what we call governance consent. If it is governance consent, by the time your lawyer prepares your agreement, in fact, I can assure you that that one can be done within 4 weeks, all things being equal, if all the documentation are ready. But where we usually have problem is the issue of survey plan. Because I don't know, maybe it's as a result of this, the license surveyor that prepared the survey plan. But what we realize is that most at times, most of the survey plan issued to the client, you won't have the record copy, which they normally call the red copy. And by the time the red copy is not readily available, there is nothing they can do at land bureaus, and that keeps on. But we do suggest and advise government that by the time a licensed surveyor is submitting a red copy, let him pay for land information certificate at that point in time, so as to make it easier. Thank you.
Do you have a practical experience where any of these policies has made processing easier for you you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. A lot of projects that have undergone with the state government, and during this period that some were done with ease. But where the problem lies is documentation, just like what I've said. If you don't have your title or your CFO or your survey plan, if it is not correct, there could be problem. Because until they started that survey plan in relation with the state regional plan, if they now discover that your survey is wrong, it may take you time before you get that one corrected, because you have to go back through the process, submitting, go back to your license surveyor, visit site for survey plan, submitting the confirmation of red copy, and you now bring it back to land bureau for rectification. That may take time. And what usually happens is that it is better for the proponent to have assured that all those documents were properly done and they are correct before proceeding on processing of title.
So what are the challenges that have been experienced in the implementation of these policies, and how does it implicate, what implication does it have on the public as a government client?
The only thing we usually have is that, as I've said, government is trying in their own way to evolve with a policy that makes things easier for the public. But there is no way we can rule out individual actions, behaviors. And that is why I do campaign for ethical reorientation. Because government will have policy, good policies, so to say, but the people, I mean the civil servant that will implement these policies becomes another thing. Because you will not expect either the general manager or the commissioner or the governor to be working with you directly because you want to obtain planning permit or you want to obtain title document to your property. It is clearly stated, but it depends on individuals. I've evolved in a series of applications or projects that you see, it depends on the individual. By the time you meet with someone and he cooperates with you by doing what is needful, what is necessary to be done, you get things done easily. But at times, we've seen a situation whereby, because of alphabetical changes in the writing of names, it may take you another 1 year before that could be corrected. but it is common sense. I've seen a situation whereby you submit certified true copy of your title document and it takes another 3 months before the something, and they now send you back to go and recollect another certified true copy. You can imagine the same title that doesn't change within the system, and you made to pay another fee because you won't get it for free. So those are the areas we need to address. Then again, I've told you that now we thank God that government listening to the yearnings of the professionals consultant by bringing LRS to LASPPPA. Unlike before, when all files in the state, namely Ikorodu, Badagry, Lagos Island, will be taken to Alausa in one office. So the something will be too much for the officers, and it may take time, and without the clearance of that tax you might not be able to get your approval. But we are still working on it, and government is trying to listen to our yearnings.
Okay, as a client to the government and consultant to clients, so in this situation you're like the middleman between the government and the client. What are those things in the implementation of government policies at the various stages, that at the Land Bureau, the Surveyor General Office, the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, that people desire from the government for further consideration to ease their doing business? So what are those issues that the people wish the government could still consider to make their businesses easy?
Yes, thank you for that question. You see, government will need to play their own role, as well as the proponent, as well as we, the consultant. We cannot shift all the blames on government. The proponent or the consultant representing the client is supposed to do the needful. One, in the area of submission of documents. By the time you are coming in to obtain or seek for planning permit, make sure that all your planning requirements are readily available. You don't submit in bits, because the proponent will be counting days of submission, and the consultant might not inform his client that he is the one delaying the process. And the government on their own side will not approve until all those documentation are readily available and correct. Then on the part of government, government has been trying to make sure that things were done at ease and at a reasonable time. But the issue of tax, honestly speaking, is still very, very important in this regard. By the time you pay your statutory fees for planning permit, or name it, any kind of development, either title or Surveyor General's office or Land Bureau or Physical Planning Department, you still made to pay tax. And at the end of the day, if the town planners on their own side will process the plan to approval level, waiting for your tax clearance, at that level, we usually advise government that physical planning should not be an appendage of LRS. If I satisfied all the planning requirement and I've paid all the statutory fees expected of me to be paid, I think planning permit should be granted. But what it obtains now is that if your tax, I don't know how they assess it, because what you usually say is that they will tell you that the tax is inadequate. For somebody that pays maybe 500,000 naira as tax, they now use the project to base the tax assessment that you are going to pay. But to me, why I didn't subscribe to that system, because in a situation whereby I've already paid the expected tax that they calculated for me elsewhere, and I've used it to do some other things. By the time I now bring in my application for planning permit in terms of building construction this time around, LRS will now say that, okay, what you have paid is inadequate. Compare with the project you want to do, forgetting that it is still a proposal. You don't know whether I'm going to borrow money to implement this project. You don't know whether it's going to be a collective venture of the family. But they will now base it because I want to have 6 units of building in a particular location. They consider the location and the type of structure you want to put in place. And you don't know whether I want to be doing it bit by bit. If I get the money this year, I will do the first decking, then relax. You don't know how when it's going to take me to construct or to complete the project. But you want the tax paid immediately.
Sorry to cut you short, sir. Could this be the reason why people apply for permits and they propose, say, a 3 units and then they go back to construct a 6 units?
Because by the time you do that, that becomes an illegal development. I wouldn't encourage that. It is better to do the normal thing at the normal time. Because by the time you say, because you don't want to pay tax, and you now obtain planning permit for a smaller something, and at the end of the day you go back and implement different things, that made your approval to be null and void. So one shouldn't subscribe to that.
So what do you think the government can do, or what should they consider to really make it easier for people from all that you have said now?
I think tax should be based on one's income. If I want to embark on any project, I may go to the bank and borrow money. I may invite my children to come and assist because it's going to be a family project. And my children that I've collected money from will pay tax in his office or our office. So tax should be based on one's income, because projects can last for so many years. It does not necessarily mean that I need to start a project today and end it within 1 year. So it's a gradual process. And again, there shouldn't be any delay. As I've told you earlier, the government is trying to make sure that at least every investors get result on time, because there is time value for money. And by the time you are doing that, I think they shouldn't base it on what they see on paper, because there are many projects that takes 5, even 10 years before completion. And what do you think might cause all those things? It's because of the funding.
We'll go on a quick break and we'll be right back on the show.
Cable Plus Property, the hub of professionals in the built environment and the #1 online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed property. At Cable Plus Property, our aim is to ensure that all Nigerians and non-Nigerians have at the tip of your fingers, free of charge, all information on landed matters. We provide you with all information you need to know about land procurement, land documentation and development, planning permit procurement, building construction, and so on. Join us today for free by subscribing to our YouTube channel, like and follow us on our social media platforms, and check us on our website www.cableplusproperty.com. Together, we shall make our environment better. Spend and build right.
Hi, Hi, welcome back. It's still the Cable Plus Property Show. My name is Oiza and I'm still speaking with Town Planner Bisi Adedire. Okay, sir. As a well-seasoned consultant that handles one project or the other for clients, viewers would like to know what are the required documents to obtain a planning permit.
Thank you. The document required why you want to obtain planning permit. One, you see, this is an intention. For anybody that want to invest in a particular project, you must consult a professional. You don't necessarily need to be an engineer before you own a building or an architect. And that is to tell you that there will be need for you to involve the professionals. You now come up with your drawings. Architectural drawing, you must have engaged the services of architect. If it is a project that will require structural drawing, you have to come up with your structural drawings. If it's a project that will require electrical, mechanical drawings, all those drawings would have been prepared for submission. Then your title document, as I've said. If you have your CFO or your registered deed of assignment or name it, it will be submitted. Then payment of statutory fees. If it is a corporate entity, company, they will require you to submit your certificate of incorporation. Then your tax clearance certificate. If it is individual, personal income tax. If it is corporate entity, at least 2 directors, tax clearance, all those things will be submitted. You see, by the time you have all those documents, you now go to LASPPPA district office, depending on the area that falls. You take all these drawings, architectural drawing, even before submission, the architect will vet your drawings if it is okay. If there is need for you to make any amendment, at that stage, it must have been corrected. Then, by the time they vet all the drawings and checked all the necessary documents you require to submit, and they must have checked all the planning requirements, alongside with the report, there is something we call LUPA now, Land Use Planning and Analysis Report. It is on all projects. Details of land use must have been captured. The proponent name, location of your project, every detailed information about the project must have been clearly stated in your LUPA. Then, if it is commercial development or residential in excess of 8 units, or all other uses like institutions, name it, hotel development, commercial use, shopping complex, place of worship, name it, it will be accompanied with what we call physical planning technical report. And the technical report will tell you the details about the project, and it will give you an informed information about that project so as to be able to determine whether it is approvable or not. The environmental impact of that project on the environment will have been determined, and necessary mitigating measure must have been prepared by the consultant, in which the proponent will comply with. So, by the time you have all these documents ready and it has been clearly vetted, screened properly, if it is okay, you now proceed to obtain assessment. We call it assessment, whereby all the statutory fees must have been calculated for payment by the proponent.
Okay, having talked about the documents required, can you please take our viewers through the step-by-step procedure of obtaining this permit for land that is vacant and free from government acquisition?
By the time you made that payment, you bring the receipt to the ministry for certification. By the time they certify it to be all right, your plan will be registered and registration number will be given to you. Now, after registering of this plan, those plans will now be taken from one table to the other. The district officer might minute your file to their workers for site inspection. The reason for this site inspection is to ascertain that the land is readily available and to make sure that what you are preparing in your report, they confirm all those information in the report and in the drawings. Because at times, even the survey plan prepared by a registered surveyor, I don't know, you now realize that coordinate A and B, where it's supposed to be at Ikorodu, it may take it to elsewhere. So they will have to confirm that that land is situated at where you intend to develop your property. So by the time they came back from site inspection, they prepared their own report. After that, the survey plan submitted will be started against the regional plan, the state regional plan, to confirm the authenticity and the location of that project site. So by the time all those things are done, then your file can be recommended for approval. So, but what we are saying now is that in order to make it easier, all those things have been packaged to be done within 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Honestly speaking.
It sounds like
I've seen a situation whereby, in fact, my institute project, Nigerian Institute of Town Plan and Lagos State chapter, I made bold to inform you that this thing was processed within 10 days and the approval was granted.
because you're professional town planners.
It's not only that, it happens to individuals too. I've seen a situation whereby I process an approval, though residential, within a couple of days, and I got the approval.
It sounds like a long process already. So 2 weeks really seems unbelievable.
It's realistic.
Okay, so let's move on in our conversation, sir. Would like you to explain to our viewers in simple terms the following terms. Site inspection. What are those things that an officer carrying out site inspection is supposed to observe? What are those things that he or she is supposed to observe?
Yes, you know, I just mentioned that before. It's part of planning process to obtain a planning permit. By the time all documentation was submitted to the district office, they will call you for site inspection. At times, it is usually done even before the registration is made to make it faster. At times, the file must have been registered before they go for site inspection. But basically, what the reason for site inspection is what I've mentioned earlier. One, to ascertain that the land is readily available and at the appropriate place. Two, to look at that site in relation to your proposal, whether the land can accommodate it or not. You may have a parcel of land that is average of 600 square meter, and you want to build a structure that is more than that. Then, at that point, it will be clearly shown that that land cannot accommodate what you intend to build. At times, you will have a stream that has cuts across your property. But by the time survey is released and you don't have anything to show on that, it will be at our own end. By the time we go for site recognition survey, for site inspection, you now determine that there is a stream that cut across this thing. You can't develop on its water body now, on a water body. So that is why site inspection is very necessary. Because there could be a kind of encumbrances on the site which might not be taken into consideration while you are designing. And that is why if you don't go for site inspection, you might not even see it. Especially when you are preparing a layout design, subdivision of land into plots. And you now, if you don't go to site, if you don't have the topography of that area, if you don't have the satellite imagery of that area, you will run into problem. And that is why site inspection is very key.
Charting, why is it necessary?
When we say charting, it boils down to the survey plan. The survey plan will be charted against the available regional plan or development guide plan in that area, or model city plan that is readily available in that environment. By the time they chart your distance, if you are bringing in an application for residential purpose and they now chart it against the plan that covers that environment, if it doesn't fall within that residential zone, you will know, and what to be done, correction can still be made. Because if it is not a complementary use, we've seen on many occasions, and that is why we advise government, maybe in the course of our discussion, we've seen a situation whereby you bring in an application for a particular use and you have title to it, and by the time they chart your distance against the plan for that environment, we now realize that it is a different story. I've evolved in a situation whereby land were allocated to my client for industrial purpose, and at the end of the day, we had title on it that bears industrial use. But by the time the plan was taken to the ministry, we now realize that it was a different use. Physical planning was saying that it's going for commercial purpose, whereas my intention is to have industrial use. So, and that is why we are saying there must be a synergy between the tiers of government. If NTDA prepares a plan, let the copy of the plan be submitted to physical planning and lands. And the Surveyor General's office that will prepare the survey should have input so that things can work better. Because I am telling you, we need to go back and redesign.
The next one is non-destructive integrity test. When and why do we need it?
Non-destructive integrity test, it is very necessary, most especially on an existing structure. If you want to do or embark on renovation or remodeling or adding additional floor to the existing building, you need to test the stability of that building. And without carrying out non-destructive test, integrity test, you can't be able to ascertain the stability, the structural stability of that building. And that is why it is very important. Again, in a already existing settlement, maybe there is incident of fire outbreak in a particular area, or the building is affected by fire incident. After the inferno, the owner of that building want to rebuild or renovate the structure. It is very necessary to first of all test that stability of that building, whether it can still be able to cope or not. I've involved in a project, even government project this time around, whereby the building has already been abandoned for quite a good number of years and they want to come back. We've had some that have 6 floors, We have some that are 6 floors. But by the time they carry out the non-destructive integrity test of those structures, they now realize that even the pile they prepare for those structures cannot withstand the number of floors on it. So what we need to do is to remove some of the floors. In some cases, they demolish everything and start all over again. It is easier done that way, because if you don't do it, at the end of the day, if the building collapses while people are occupying it, it will amount to loss of lives and property, and you waste resources. So that is why it is very, very important to do that, especially when there is need for that.
The last term before we move to the next question, soil test and its relevance.
Thank you. Just like all other documents that we've been referring to that are important, soil test is equally important when it comes to construction. The soil test will give you the texture, the soil texture of a particular subject site, and it will help you to determine the type of foundation to be put in place while you want to embark on construction. It is not just for the construction, even right from design stage. It will inform the architect the type of foundation, the number of floors you can go, because it will determine the load-bearing capacity of that soil.
Wow, that was another educative session with Town Planner Bisi Adedire, the immediate past chairman of Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, NITP Lagos State Chapter. I trust that you learned from that conversation, because yes, I did. Alright, my name is Oliza, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep watching Cable Plus Property. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, like and share this video with friends, family and colleagues. Also head on to our Instagram and Facebook pages at Cable Plus Property. Bye.